It's always a top worry, a top fear, a top concern, whether you're considering divorce or already going through it. Today, we're talking about money and we're talking about financial resources to help you get clear before you take the next step forward. Let's get started. Welcome to the Crazy Ex-Wives Club, a podcast dedicated to helping women navigate the emotional journey that is divorce. I'm your host, Erica, and if you're trying to figure out life after the big D, welcome to the club. Whether you're contemplating divorce or dealing with the aftermath or any of the many phases in between, the club has got you covered. Each week, you'll hear stories from women who have been in your shoes. This isn't about spilling tea on divorce details. This is about giving you the tools to take control of your own healing journey. Listen in weekly for advice, tips, and tools to help you move through each stage of the process. Welcome back to another episode of the Crazy Ex-Wives Club. I'm your host, Erica, and today I have a dynamic mother-daughter duo. Welcome, Dr. Barb Provost and Maggie Nielsen. How are you guys today?
Fantastic.
Doing great. Thank you for having us on.
Absolutely. Well, you guys, Dr. Barb and Maggie run Purse Strings. Purse Strings is a go-to financial resource for women. Online tools, resources, vetted professionals to help you make smart financial decisions. And so we are here today to really talk about some of those smart decisions, or, how do you figure out what tools you need? Dr. Barb herself is a fellow divorcee. So welcome to the Crazy Ex-Wives Club, Dr. Barb. Why don't you actually start and tell us a little bit about how that divorce kind of shifted you into having to learn more about finances and figure out the money side?
Sure. So I was always in the financial industry as a consultant. And when I was going through divorce, I joined a group of other women who were navigating divorce. And money, of course, was a topic that we discussed. And many women, smart, educated, bright women, would ask me, although I'm not a financial professional, I am an educator, questions about finances. Should I keep the house? How much would it cost me to live on my budget? Should I get life insurance? And it was interesting to me that women of our age and our place in life really had some foundational questions about money, which got me thinking about how financial literacy isn't taught in schools. We're not really taught financial literacy or how to manage our money. We just kind of stumble through it, or we learn as we go. And it really is a detriment to women. And I did a lot of research, a lot of focus groups, dragged Maggie into it with me, and really learned that women are an overlooked and underserved market when it comes to financial services, and that they really need a go-to resource that treats them with respect and dignity, which is really, really important in this conversation, to help them make good, smart financial decisions. So that's what we built for them.
I love that. I think the only thing I learned about finances in school, we had to balance a checkbook. I know that does still not happen, but I remember we were had to learn how to carry it over and do the math. And that was about it, right? Learn how to balance a checkbook, learn how to, add and subtract some numbers as the money comes in. It's been really wonderful to see a big shift in the last X number of years of more women running financial advisory places, more women stepping into helping other women connect to tools. I had a client who happily married, then unhappily married, then they did wind up being happily married again, but she had never even opened her own credit card.
Yeah.
And so these phases, she had just lived her whole life of not having to get through some of these financial steps, which made it very scary when things were not so okay, that there was a whole world that really is foundational to your safety and your security. How do we pay the bills, and how do I know what I can afford, and all of that stuff. So let's dive into some of those big pieces. So the listeners on the other side, about half of them are unhappily married and half of them are somewhere in the divorce process. So let's start at the very beginning. If they're unhappily married, what are some of the big tips that they can hear today and then maybe start to action after the call?
Yeah, some of those tips is always just kind of understanding where the money is in your house, what's currently coming in, what's going out, where are you spending money, but then also diving a little bit deeper to see where the bank accounts are, whose name is on the house. Are there life insurance policies? Just grabbing some of that stuff that maybe's been done over the years, that's maybe collected in a folder. And we do have a download where you can kind of write all this stuff down and collect all this information, because it's important to start, just pulling these pieces together to getting the full financial picture and understanding, what is yours, what your name might not be on, where this information is located. And that way you can start gathering this information and then looking at the picture yourself or working with a financial professional to kind of understand, all right, this is where we're at. Like, is this something I do want to do? Is this something I don't want to do? Where are we now currently? And that gives you just some good footing to get started, because you got to know just what your numbers are currently. And I always think that's the best place to get started. It can be a little difficult because some stuff is just not all on paper anymore. It's like online. So you might have to find some passwords or start figuring out, like, I know there's an account here. I'm not quite sure what the login is, but I know that it's there, and just start writing down some of those things. And we always recommend, keep that, if you have it, a file on your computer, make sure it's either like your computer or on a memory stick or like a shared drive where you can get to it, even if that computer is not your computer, if that makes sense.
It does. I remember that when I was figuring it out, and luckily, again, we both worked. We both were very in charge of our own finances. And I know that that's not everyone's story, but even for me, I found money I didn't know I had. So
which could be great. I mean, let's do it.
And it was, full confession, super annoying process. I put it off and I put it off, and I was like, I don't want to go through the filing cabinet. I don't want to find all the logins. I don't want to do this thing. And then I did it, and it was so incredibly helpful. And I think that that's the awareness that no matter where you're at in the phase, and ideally do this before things are stressed, because when they get stressed, then it gets a little harder, right? Because now you feel like you're sneaking around and you're trying to get things that maybe a partner is trying to hide from you. But having that running list, every year, sitting back down and saying, okay, here's our master spreadsheet of where all the money's at. What do the balances look like? How hard has our money worked for us this year? Do we have any new ones that we started? The more you stay on top of it, ahead of it, the less of a hassle it is to, when you're in this highly emotional state, when everything is super painful and uncertain and stressful, to have to go do another stressful task.
Exactly. And we call that document How to Prepare for Divorce Before You Mention the D Word. So it's really all the prep that you need to do, that even if you're going to meet with a mediator or an attorney, they're going to tell you to go do that anyway. And don't pay somebody to tell you or help you do that. You can do all of that on your own, and we walk you through that step by step.
I love it. And you guys, that free download, we have it in the show notes. We have it on the crazyexwivesclub.com under episodes, because it's all about getting you the resources, right? Giving you the tools so that you can be as empowered to get through as many of the pieces as you can. So I love that. What, if they're in the process, then they've already got their list, they've figured out where the money is. What else should somebody start to be aware of when it comes to money?
Well, I would say that when you're working through divorce, there are these specialties that you need to be aware of. One is a certified divorce financial analyst. You might find a financial professional who has that designation, or just somebody who has that designation outside of being a financial professional. And what they're going to do is look at your divorce documents from the financial standpoint and really ensure that they are looking at the divorce decree and see not as the information and the division of assets appropriate today, but what is it going to be down the road and in the future? Because once you sign that document, you're really signing away not about your funding today, but your future funding as well. And you want to make sure that is not being done by your attorney, because your attorney does not have the depth of knowledge of your financials. So that's one thing. The other one is, if real estate is involved, you might want a certified divorce lending professional. And that is someone who's going to be looking at your assets in terms of if you're selling or buying a house, and you're looking at any income that might be coming to you for alimony or child support, and how that plays into your income for purchasing another property. So those are things that are unique and different to a divorce, and you want those specialists at the table so that they can ensure that the decisions you're making today are impactful for not only today, but for your future. So many people think, oh, I had no idea that I signed this document. Now I'm stuck with this big tax issue in the future that I had no idea about. but my attorney just said this was the best thing that he or she could do for me. So you want to make sure you don't rush through it and you have the proper financial professionals in your team and at the table working through your financial documents with you.
So important. Those are definitely individuals I did not know about. I just used my attorney. And I think the first question that I had when I first heard of them is what makes them different than just talking to, my neighbor's does real estate. He's a realtor. Can I chat with him? Or I have a financial advisor. Do I need a certified divorce financial advisor? Do you know what makes them a little bit different or why somebody would want to look for somebody specific to the divorce situation?
Yeah, so the certified divorce financial analyst, you might see it as a CDFA, and they just go through, it's like a specific training for divorce finances. And so some of their specialties are looking for the taxes and also understanding like a dollar today is not a dollar tomorrow, especially in your bank account versus in your house versus in your Roth IRA. Those are all very different buckets on the way they're taxed, the way you could pull out the money. And so they're just specialized in that area. And they're also just a great person to meet with. I would say sometimes even before you meet with your attorney, if you bring them kind of that sheet of all your information saying, I'm thinking about getting divorced. What do you think that would look like if I got, half is usually, what they go for these days. And so what would that look like? Just to kind of project of like, this might be my lifestyle. This might not. Is this something that I do want to go with or carry through? And then with the lending professional, they know a lot about child support and alimony. And it's just some really interesting nuances that maybe a regular loan officer won't know about. And part of that, I know, just like one example, don't take this as fact, but, is you need to get alimony or child support for 3 years for it to count into income into your mortgage. And so if you do that, let's say your kid is 16, so you're not going to get that for 3 years, but you do want to keep the house. So maybe you could add in your divorce decree that you will get that alimony for 3 years instead of doing something else. That way you can use that money for income for your house. So there are these different nuances that are just important to keep in mind that maybe just an everyday loan officer won't just know about because that's not their normal transaction. But when you have these different forms of income, they're really helpful in kind of understanding how to navigate that into your home ownership and just ensuring that you're not what we call house poor. Because if something breaks, you can't take money out of the window to go fix the furnace. And so you do need to have those extra cash reserves to go fix those things in the house. And so, is that something that's still available? Is that something that you want to do? And so kind of understanding some of those other nuanced components along the way. And so it's really just having that specialty as, it's like you go to your regular doctor, but if you have a specific heart issue, you want to go to the heart doctor who knows all about the heart, not just somebody who's, yeah, I've done a lesson on the heart, but you're specifically couldn't tell you as much about.
Right. Be like, I colored it in on one of those coloring books. It works really well.
I know where the valves are. Like, what else do you need?
It's actually like I'm having a little light bulb moment over here as to why it's so important, because there was another scenario that I had learned about, on paper, when the divorce was final, all the numbers worked on who owed what and who got what. But one person inherited a loan at a 6% interest rate that 6 years later was still not paid off. And so that's really not the value of what it was when the divorce happened. Like, yes, there was a flat value at that point, but continuing to grow interest on it over years or missing payments or not paying it off means that it actually was a lot more of a financial debt that was assigned to this one side. So super important. Where can you find these people? Are you Googling them? Are we going back to the resources?
You're going to purse strings, pursestrings.co. That's where you're going for them.
Yeah, I know I too, because when I have guests on, I always ask, what key learnings did you take away? And Dr. Barb had shared, just don't go Google for your resources. And that back when I was figuring it out, that was it, right? We just Googled it. It's almost scarier now because I bet you now people just go like, I'll go watch this person on TikTok or Instagram, right? And I see so many influencers out there being like, great, I just went through a divorce. So now I have the capability to give you all the advice. And that's really risky. They can give you their opinion. Google who knows, right? When people are paying for fake websites and whatever else. So you want to make sure that you have a reliable resource. So you do have purse strings to be able to go through, and you guys have vetted all your professionals on there and have a ton of other great free resources. Any other big must know? Is there one more big must know tip that women should be aware of as they're trying to figure out money and divorce?
Yeah, I would say that they need to really create a budget of how it's going to be living on your own now with one income, because it's going to be more expensive. Unfortunately, the data will tell you it's more expensive to live on your own, of course, but also women lose in divorce and men gain financially in divorce. So you really need to get a good hold on where your money's going. We also have a worksheet on that called Where's Your Money Going? So you know what kind of money's coming into your household every month, whether that be your pay, alimony, what other kind of income comes to you on a monthly basis. And then what are your expenses? What's going out on a monthly basis? And I always say the grounding for everything is knowing your numbers on a monthly basis. How much is coming in and how much is going out? Because that will tell you, where your money leaks, what are you spending your money on? Where can you hold back? Where can you invest more, save more? What's kind of the flow of your money? Where can you maybe give to charity? The numbers will give you the data to say, how can you best manage your money in ways that will make you feel good about yourself and build you a beautiful future. But without really knowing really good key data about what's coming in and what's going out, you can't make those decisions in a good, healthy way.
Yeah, you'd probably will absolutely die. My version of a budget back then was just, is there extra money left over? And how much extra money? Because I'll move some more into savings. So like it was literally just, did our expenses come in under, or if they went in over, right? Because at that point I owned a house, and every year I did some sort of improvement on the project, and I'd be like, okay, great, we'll do the 12-month credit card, 0 interest, $1,000 a month, we'll get it paid off. And that was really it. And so when we did get divorced, I did have a lot of fear. I did have a lot of insecurity around how am I going to be able to pay for this, because there used to be 2 checks coming in for what in my mind was still going to be about the same going out, right? We still had a credit card bill. I stayed in the house for a while and then eventually bought my own house. So I was like, oh, the money going out is still going to be the same. The money coming in just got cut in half. If you're feeling overwhelmed, exhausted from overthinking, and stuck in uncertainty, this message is for you. You don't have to keep feeling that way. Inside the club, you'll find a safe space to rediscover who you are, clarify what you want, and determine how you want to move forward. Surrounded by women who truly understand and guided by expert support, you are not alone on this journey. Join us at thecrazyexwivesclub.com/the club. It's time to reclaim your life. So I had somebody share a thing called Find Your Basement. Have you ever heard of this? Find your basement, your money house, right? All the things that you want to do with it and the beautiful things you want to put in it. No, I want an extension. I want this and this. And we're talking about a figurative house here, you guys. But what does your house need just to maintain the basement? And get real clear on what that means. Like, can you make coffee at home instead of spending $100 on, Starbucks or Caribou or whoever else, wherever you're at? Okay, there might be some temporary tough choices that you have to make, but it's not a forever. But getting real clear on like, okay, what is the very, very minimum amount that I need to be able to survive? What does that grocery bill look like? What is that mortgage, the insurance, right? Not all the Amazon shopping, not all the Target. Ooh, this candle is so cute and I'm getting something extra. If you really had to lock it down, what would that number be? And then you start to breathe because you're like, oh, okay, it's there, but like I'm bringing in more than that. So I've got this ability, I've got this breathing room now that I can start making smart choices about. And then your basement, it's going to move, right? If you buy a bigger house, if you have to refinance and the interest rate is different, that bottom level of what you need changes, but it helps you see that, hey, there's a little bit of space. I don't have to be so tight on my purse strings, right? Like so strangling it to death. There's a little bit, and then get clear on where that money is going.
Yeah. And I guess I would say one more thing is have an emergency fund. You've heard this a lot, right? It's because when you own a house, and I had a house after I was divorced, but the sump pump went out, right? The lawn needs mowing. My kids are at college now. They're not mowing the lawn anymore. The driveway needs to be shoveled. I can't be doing all that, right? So you're giving out the money left and right and thinking, I don't want to maintain this house anymore. It's costing me a fortune in expenses that I really didn't consider, right? So you need to say, not only am I paying a mortgage, interest, whatever, but what are the monthly maintenance expenses? But not only that, if you have a car, there's maintenance on your car. So you have to think about all those emergency funding type things. You need to quick jet out to see your mom because maybe she's gotten sick and you need to go see her. You need your kid's gotten sick, you need to jump in a car and go to school and get a hotel room. So whatever those emergencies are, you really need to make sure you have a stash of cash that's accessible in like a high yield savings account that you can dip into when you have these emergencies. And that's very, very important because you shouldn't be using your credit card as your emergency fund. That'll get you into a lot of trouble.
A lot of trouble, right? Because we just put a little more and a little more. That is such a great call out because I do remember Friday night, I walked in. Friday, we always had pizza because mom's tired. So I was picking up Domino's or whatever pizza. I walk in. We're at the new place. So the kid's probably 4, 5. We're talking little, and stepped on the floor and it's wet. And I looked at my kid and I'm like, did you spill water? Like what?
Please tell me you spilled water.
It's not snow boot season. Like what is going on? And I lived in a townhouse and the water heater had emergency evacuated while I was at work all over the floors. The previous people had done their own like wood paneling flooring. So all of it had bowed. And so we came in and as you walked, it squished and squished. No, I had downsized for a townhouse. I didn't even have enough towels to soak up the water because I had 4 towels for 2 people in the house. And I'm frantically like trying to figure out because it's soaking into the carpet and I don't know who pays for it. Does the townhouse, does my insurance? It's late at night. Nobody's answering the calls. I'm literally sitting in the floor in the kitchen, head in my hands, bawling. Like, how am I going to afford this? Like what I just got this place. Like who's responsible? I can't handle this on top of all the divorce stuff. So It's a lot. Having that emergency fund is important.
And, I think we hear this a lot about so much about wanting to keep the home and things of that nature, or just buying another home. And I think a lot of times we kind of use that as like a measure of success. Like I own my home, you're at this age, you want to be doing that. But like, there's nothing wrong with just renting and having it all be somebody else's problem because I got a kid to take care of alone. I got this new job. I'm still going through a divorce. And then maybe in 5 years, I want to go back to buying a home and being a homeowner. But until that point, there's nothing, at any point, there's nothing wrong with renting. I'm a big proponent of it because homeownership can be expensive. It might not be where your time and energy wants to go. But I think so often we're just told that we should have the family and own the home. And that's just not true at this point. There's so many other things to manage. So like take advantage of renting, take advantage of calling somebody out and be like, this is your problem now. Like, this is your house. It's your problem. And then, if at a later time you want to be a homeowner again, great, jump in, go do that. But you don't have to do it all at once, which I think is something that is just a pressure that we feel that's just not necessary.
Yeah. And it's definitely much different now. When I sold the house and I bought the townhouse, I did a massive downgrade, 2,000 square feet to 1,000 square feet. I didn't want to manage the yard anymore. I didn't want to manage the snow removal. The payment for the townhouse was still more than the house because the house I had bought, 10 years earlier. But there was a lot of shifting that had to happen. Yep. Even in that mindset of going from owning a real house, quote unquote, real house to a townhouse, my son would be like, how come we don't have a big house like other people? Right. And did that come up? For sure. And did my heart be a little bit sad? And did I have the total like keeping up with the Joneses thing? Yeah, for a hot second, because culturally we've been told that that's the thing you're supposed to do. I was just talking to these kids, they're engaged, they're like in their 20s. They just bought their first house and they were talking about all the renovation projects. They've had to gut it and the roof is leaking, and the insurance, because they can't afford full insurance, the insurance would cost them more than just doing the roof themselves. And I was like, oh, did you want a fixer-upper? And they were like, no, it's just really all we could afford. And I was sitting there like, why did you think you had to buy now then? There's nothing great about, right? Like the interest rate is up and the house prices are kind of crazy. Like it's not like my day when it was 2 and 3% interest that we were locking in. But we have this belief system that we have to have a big house and it has to look nice and we have to keep up this appearance. And who rents, right? Like, oh, are you a renter?
When
You're
we
a
got
college
engaged,
kid,
that's the
or
next
like,
step is we buy a house, we have the kids, we grow them
yeah.
up in the house.
And so if you got those beliefs, that's fine. I had them too. And like Maggie said, I had to get real clear that like, hey, this is a temporary step because I don't want to do all the other things. I didn't want to maintain a full house. It was too much on top of all the other things that were going on. And the size of the house really didn't matter. The home is created by the experience and the love and the support on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we didn't compare our house to like the other people that had a huge master bedroom or whatever else, did we love our space? Yeah, we loved our space. It was comfortable. It was cute. We liked it. But there is a rewiring, right? We have to let go sometimes of fighting for things just because we think that it matters. And reflect and ask yourself and be like, do you really want that payment? Do you really want to maintain that size of a house? What is your plan if an emergency comes up? A new furnace, right? That's 10 grand. I had to replace all the mechanicals. The furnace was covered under the insurance policy from the previous owners. The water heater, the water softener, the stove, like the washer and dryer upstairs, everything one by one. And that's after living in a house for 10 years where I didn't have to replace the dang thing.
Yep.
And
Crazy, right? Yeah.
it just depends on the house, right?
It's a crapshoot.
You never know. Yeah.
You never know. And even, I had a friend build a brand new house and they had problems all the
Yep.
time. And so what are you able to energetically hold space and energy for? And what are you able to monetarily hold space and energy for? And sometimes we put those two together, but we need to look at them separately and then get real clear and remind yourself, this is a phase. This is not a forever. This is a phase.
And there's power in living below your means and being very comfortable in knowing I have freedom, I have choice, I can do whatever I want. I mean, that's the millionaire next door. That's the whole premise is, they don't buy the new car. They don't buy the big house. They have plenty of money in the bank to do whatever they want, whenever they want, because they don't need to buy the latest and greatest shiny object. They're just living their lives in ways that they live them. And, cars are depreciating assets and, houses are, maintenance nightmares sometimes. So they're just living within or maybe even below their means. And that way they're not racking up a lot of credit and things like that. That's how they have money in the bank.
Yeah, I definitely learned a version of that. College, I was in California, freshly married in California. So like your, early 20s, early to mid 20s through 28, up to 28. And then we moved to the Midwest where the rent was a joke. We had to have a roommate to be able to afford to rent a tiny, tiny little town. It wasn't even a townhouse. It was a condo. And then we moved to the Midwest and I was like, we have so much money. We can travel. We can do all these things that we were never able to do because it costs so much just to be able to live and not even at standard. I mean, we still lived like poor college kids, and then you move and things change and you can breathe. And even though it was what we were used to, right? We were used to this is how much rent costs. And we were used to this is, gas was always over $5 a gallon. And that was 20 years ago, right? We were used to that. And then you start to breathe and you're like, oh, but look at what else I can do when I don't just spend my money in places that I don't really need to anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It brings you a lot of peace, I think.
I love that. There were two other key learnings that you shared, Dr. Barb. And so let's talk a little bit about these and then we'll wrap up. But you also shared the learning of don't rush through it. And this is so crucial because sometimes we just want to get it done. We just want to get it done. And I get that because I just wanted to get it done too. By the time I finally decided, I was like, let's go. But I'm grateful for the 2 years that it took to get to that decision because rushing causes some mistakes sometimes to be made. But what did you also learn or what have you guys learned in not rushing?
We've talked to a lot of women who went through divorce, even financial professionals who have gone through divorce. And one of their regrets was that they rushed through it. They were tired of waiting for whatever they were waiting for. They just wanted to get it done. They just wanted to settle. And in hindsight, they felt like that was probably not the best decision because they lost out on some financial funding long term. Even financial professionals who are savvy financial women who said I was just too close to the situation, but I thought I'm smart, I can do this. And yet I made my own mistakes. So really having the proper professionals at the table with you, even if you are a financial professional, making sure you're walking through it step by step, asking the right questions, and really making sure that everything is taken care of for now and in the future, and not rushing just to get through it. I mean, it's not a happy place to be. It's a very uncomfortable place, and no one wants to be in that place for a long time. But you want to make sure you're making the right decisions and you're not just making an emotional, let's just get this done type of decision, because it can really impact your finances.
Yeah. Or, when you're just like, I'm just exhausted of dealing with him. Fine. He's worn me down. I'm just going to agree. I'm just going to say yes to what he's asking for. Again, have your support systems because it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You got to be able to get through it. And then the last one you shared is don't make it a win-lose game.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard stories, we've had a lot on our podcast where attorneys will tell us they've seen people argue over credit card points that they don't want to give up, and it will cost them, hundreds and hundreds of dollars through this argument through attorney payments over points that they could have just paid outright with the money that they've paid their attorneys, but it was because they wanted to win. They wanted to win, and it just doesn't make sense. That's where your common sense goes out the door, and your anger and your emotions take over, and you're not making good decisions. So I think everybody is a give get. I think in those types of, everybody has their own story. Everybody has their own place. It's easy to say, don't make it a win-lose situation, but you need to really try to think through it as logically as possible. And I think if you do have a good team with you, they will help you do that as well.
And I think as from the kid side, you just don't also want to see a win-lose situation because that's not a great reflection of your parents, I don't think either, especially it's like, wow, you saw dad made her lose or you saw mom make dad lose. I mean, that's not something you want to see in those role models either. And so seeing them both put their best foot forward of just kind of getting this done and, my parents were great role models of that. They're like, all right, we're both having 2 kids go to college right now. So like we can spend all the money in the courtroom or we can help our kids get through college, and what's really more important here. And that's really to have the kids win, which I always think is just great. And so just, really putting those priorities and know that people are looking at you, not just like friends, but your kids. And so how do you want to kind of display that for them as well, which I think is just important because you want to treat others how, you want to be treated, right?
Yeah. Well, and they talk a lot about it isn't necessarily the divorce, it's the ongoing conflict that impacts children. And it is that we've had lawyers on, we had, New York City lawyers. So like the real crazy fights talk about the tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars that were lost in legal battles over like a set of tools and a toy train. And they could have just gone out and rebought it. And so it happens at all different values because we get so stuck on trying to either prove we were right or to retaliate and get back at all the pain that they caused. And the problem is exactly what you said, Maggie. Like, do you really want to, like, if there are kids in the middle, do you really want to make somebody lose?
Yep.
Like everybody already lost. It didn't work. Everybody is hurting in the situation of divorce. There is nobody that's like, haha, I won. Even if somebody says that, you guys, they're not dealing with their feelings. And there is a piece in there that is so broken and so hurt. And so, yeah, we want to be able to say like, hey, this is a good business decision. There's the emotions of divorce. There's the business of divorce. This is a good business decision. We both walk away doing okay. We both walk away like we both have to rebuild. We hear it from both sides. Even, if whoever has to pay the child support also has to pay a new rent or a new mortgage as well with another bill on top of it. There's just a lot that it goes through. And so when you find yourself in those situations, right? Because I found myself in places where I was really trying to win instead of trying to create an amicable solution. And in my situation, I would say, hey, we need to take a break because this isn't going the way we want. We're starting to fight about it instead of being able to stay neutral. We'd each take some space, go do something else, and then come back to the topic. It took a lot of conversations to get through the house. It took a lot of conversations to get through some of the money things for that reason. I was so hurt by the infidelity. I was so mad, and I'd show up super neutral, like, hey, I am ready to make a good decision. I did love this man once. He is the father of my child. I do want him to be able to rebuild. I want us both to be happy in the next chapter. And then we'd start and it'd spiral down into a like, I'm going to fight for it, and pause, take a pause.
It's where we don't rush it. We take the time.
Yeah. Like just take the time, because those emotions, you guys, that's why we're crazy. It controls what we do.
Sometimes they're valid.
Well, they're always valid, right? Like they're always there because they're asking to be heard. And I think that's the most important part too. If you find yourself in a place where you are really fighting and you can't seem to let go of the fight over a TV. I had somebody tell me recently, they were like, oh, my sister's getting divorced and the, former brother-in-law, they're fighting over a TV. She doesn't even watch TV, but she doesn't want him to have it because he bought the TV. So they're fighting over it. Okay. When you find yourself in that situation, there is an emotion, a valid emotion that is asking for you to do something with it, but that's your responsibility. It is not going to be fixed if you get the TV. I guarantee you get the TV and you're like, ha. And then guess what? That ick on the inside is still there. Yeah, so use those moments to say, something about this really bothers me. Why? Why does it bother me? What am I trying to prove? What need do I have that I can validate for myself? Because otherwise we do make snap emotions. Otherwise we do make emotion-fueled decisions that get us into trouble. A little harder to clean up when we do that.
Yeah. You're not going to get out of it without your emotional roller coaster. That's going to come into play. You just have to make sure you're managing it as best you can.
I love it. So you guys have pursestrings.co, but you also have a podcast. Maggie, you want to tell everybody about your podcast so they can start subscribing there too?
Yeah, we have a podcast. It's called Women and Money, the shit we don't talk about. And we cover all the different topics. We have, divorce, we have money mindset, business ownership, the topics run the board, but we're really bringing on some of that stuff that we just have not talked about before. And we need to just start having these conversations. So, every time we're almost 100 episodes deep and I'm learning a tidbit every time as well. So yeah, would love you to tune in, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast.
Well, I love that. And then let's remind them one more time of that freebie that you guys have for them. Again, it's in the show notes. The link's in the show notes. It's on the crazyexwivesclub.com under episodes, where you can also find the link to find Dr. Barb and Maggie. But what was that freebie? Why do they need to go get it?
How to prepare for divorce before you mention the D word is a great way to prep yourself before you mention the D word. Everything you need to do to prep.
Yeah, get preventative, you guys, get educated, get aware. Divorce can be a really healthy decision. It can be the thing that puts you on the path to your next best life. And there's going to be a little rocky patch in the middle, but you are going to get through it. Make the right decisions, make the best decision you can in the moment, and always look for ways to learn from others. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. Such a fun conversation. I love talking about money. It's one of my favorite.
Thanks for having us on. It was a good time.
Yeah. Thank you guys. All right. Until next week, you guys go get those downloads. Take a look at your finances. Figure out what your basement is. What's the lowest amount you need to live off of? And then take a look. Is your money working for you? Is it in a high yield savings account? Is it rolling over? All of those good things. We'll be back next week with another episode. And that's it. Another great episode of the Crazy Ex-Wives Club, a podcast for women learning how to heal from their divorce. Tune in next week for more advice and tips to help you figure out life after divorce. And until then, give yourself grace, do the best you can, and know that this is all part of the process.